Good evening and welcome to Jones & Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. Today I'm joined by Kristen Jones.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. And so we also have a very, very packed show today with all the labor leaders in this country. Starting off with the first segment, we're joined by Mr. Obi Ferguson. He is the president of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress. And so Mr. Obi Ferguson, Jr., QC, welcome to the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And we're also joined by Dr. Sabrinka Pinder-Butler.
Yes.
That's correct. And she is the president of the Consultants, Physicians, and Staff Association, or the CPSA. So welcome to the show as well.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And so this is a big week for labor talks in the country. Labor Day is coming up on Friday. Of course, we have the annual Labor Day March. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to. But there's certainly a lot of topical issues
Yes.
that are on the table today. So you tell me where you would like to start.
Well, I would like to start by saying it's a good move for the workers of the country because last Labor Day, you recall, we were denied the right to even do a motorcade. A lot of people were very disappointed. A lot of workers were very disappointed. And so this Labor Day, they expressed great jubilation in being able to prepare themselves to march and to celebrate one of the most historic, one of the most meaningful day for workers in our country. And to them, it's a serious move. And when we were denied it, it was almost denying us being Bahamian because the labor movement has played such an integral part in the Bahamas that we know today. Because had it not been for people like Sir Randall Fox, people like Sir Clifford Darling, and those who participated in the strikes, the demonstration, and the support for Black majority rule, we wouldn't be here. So it's a very, very important day. We take it dead serious. As a matter of fact, what we did last time, we came up with something called You for Me, I for you. So if you're here for me, I definitely ain't gonna be for you. And we did that because it's so germane to what we're trying to do. There's no Bahamas, really, without labor. If you look at the history of the labor movement, I mean, you think about Clement Maynard, president of the union, Alfie Maycock, president of the union, Carl Francis, president of the union, Livingston Coakley, president of the union, Simeon Bowe, president of the union, Sir Clifford Darling, president of the Taxi Cab Union. The point I'm making, even those who came out of the movement, they were the cabinet ministers that set the tune for us. So when we see someone playing around with Labor Day, we have serious concern. And for that, we take this very serious. And we think it's an accomplishment to be able to do it. Yes.
Certainly. There's a lot of significance, historical significance in the labor movement. Absolutely. And all of the forefathers who've gone before us paved the way, right, for this moment. And so, what are some of the major concerns of your organization at this moment as we move into this Labor Day?
Several issues, but the main issue we were encountering, the former government refused to meet with the unions. And that created a problem because a part of the social makeup of our country, labor must be a part of it. We were just shut out. For 4.5 years, zero. So that created a serious problem. Industrial agreements, there's a whole bunch of industrial agreements outstanding, have not been negotiated. There are commitments to workers' unions for payments were disregarded. And debate goes on. We just couldn't meet to even discuss. If possible, how could we approach it? And so now, to be honest with you, it's not resolved because, I have 4.5 years and I have 8 months to go. You can't expect 4.5 years to be resolved. There isn't a union that I'm aware of. And the TUC, we have about 36, 38 unions and association connect with us. So there's not a group of workers in the Bahamas that doesn't come under the TUC as a union. So when you look at that, it's a serious issue. So now you're trying to resolve some things that ought to have been resolved in 4.5 years. And it sometimes does get frustrating to unions, and I can appreciate that. Because for 4.5 years you couldn't get anything done, and now you have an opportunity to meet and discuss. Right. And there's a tendency that you want it done immediately. We have met with this Prime Minister at least, that I could recall. I think it's about 3 times. We have met with the Minister of Labor. We have asked this government to do some things. We felt as though there's a conflict between being Director of Labor and Registrar of Trade Unions. Same guy has a conflict. We asked the government to make that change. The government would have done that. And unions that couldn't get recognition, the government has addressed those things. And this is not 2022. I can understand that was 1958, but we are still grappling with that. Industrial agreements that need to be negotiated. I mean, why would you take 4 years to negotiate an industrial agreement? The union officer is elected for 3 years. So on what basis could that union leader go back and say, look, this is what I've done for you over the last 3 years? Zero. And the former Prime Minister didn't hide it from us. I don't want to sound political, but he said to us he do not support unions. He said he support profit sharing.
So in this time frame when you were basically unable to engage fully with the government, what did you do within the TUC to make some sort of headway? Demonstration,
sick out, strikes, you name it. But it didn't go nowhere. No. The government still refused to sit down with the professionals, to the union leaders, and try to see if they can dispose of the issue.
So the current administration is now engaged with you fully?
Fully, because we signed a memorandum of understanding on the 25th of August, and they have been meeting and doing some things. Not quite all of them. There's still a series of outstanding issues, which I'm certain Doc will speak to very quickly, but we have some movement with the government. In other words, they're prepared to meet, they're prepared to have some discussion. We just need these agreements to be completed. And if they're not completed, we will have a problem, because our whole purpose is to represent the working man in this country. That's what we exist on.
That's right.
And if you are prepared to work with us, we with you. Simple as that.
Right. So Dr. Pinder Butler, in this memorandum of understanding with the government, you've been able to articulate the main issues that you want to have addressed. Were you able to also propose solutions, and what is the current status quo of the MOU?
So certainly we would have provided solutions even from the previous government. We know that we've certainly been in a pandemic, COVID-19. I think globally the world is aware of that. So we would have been engaged as much as we could with making recommendations as it relates to the health and the well-being of the Bahamian public from that time, providing suggestions as it relates to, for example, infrastructural challenges of our healthcare system, manpower challenges of our healthcare system, all these things that we've been battling for years. So we continue as a union because, yes, we're the bargaining agent for our members, but we also want to maintain the highest quality of care that we can provide in health in the country. So certainly it has always been our objective to do that, and that's with any administration. Certainly we are happy that we have at least been able to have the doors open. We have been able to communicate. We have been able to see engagements in both directions, right? And so we're happy that has happened. However, we still have outstanding matters that we really need addressed. We signed an industrial agreement. We made negotiations and terms to help the government so that we would return to work, etc. But we still have not received pay. And this has been outstanding now for several years. And we understand the economic challenges in the country, but we've been working diligently. We come out when everyone else is home because we've been safe. We want them to be safe. And so we come to provide the service as much as we can. But we're still not receiving the compensation. And so that is troubling for our members. Certainly when we go to work, we don't know what we may take home even to our family members. We were certainly dealing with COVID-19 when no one knew it was happening. We were there. We were able to do that, and to not be able to at least have the discussion as to, when we will be able to receive some sort of compensation towards what is owed. Because remember now, this isn't new day fees. These are outstanding. These are, things that we're talking about just trying to catch up. We haven't been able to do that. So that is troubling for our members. Even as we talk about, being at the forefront with the pandemic, and healthcare workers have been working through natural disasters even throughout the years, hurricanes and everything else. We're redeployed and those types of things. And we try our best to put the patients first, sometimes even to our detriment, but we took an oath, so that's what we do. But when we're doing that and we don't even have health insurance, for example, just every time I think we say it, people think we're not, it doesn't make sense. How can you be in healthcare? How can you be the forefront of it? You're able to contract all sorts of diseases just by the very nature of what you do. You're even rated highest among insurers. They don't even want to, your rates are so high just because of what you do, because you don't know what you're going to see every day. And you're the senior doctors who have to make the calls, and health insurance is not provided for you. That's unimaginable. So just those basic things we're asking for. I think that there are things that are beyond, just things that citizens should have when you work in that sort of environment. And so we're asking for the government to meet with us. Let us know how we're going to work this through so that our staff, our physicians, can have what is owed to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so in terms of the MOU, you've covered a lot of ground thus far, but you're saying that you haven't gone far enough, obviously. Out of some of the goals that you've set, has any of them been delivered in this new budget?
So certainly, when we talk about the overall memorandum of understanding that Mr. Ferguson referenced, we were talking about other things, not just related to healthcare. And certainly, we have also been pleased with the progress that has been made by the government as well. We're a part of this great umbrella union. And so we were also pleased that, we had changing of the registrar because there were challenges with certain things in the Labor Department itself. We've been able to have meaningful engagement, certainly important and other things. So we do support that we have had progress, but as it relates to the specific needs of our membership, we still have those things lingering, and that just can't continue. Workers are important in this country, all workers, by no means just doctors, okay? But certainly when you are off to school for a minimum of 8 years minimum. And nowadays, everyone has to specialize, which means you now have to go back to school a minimum of another 3+. Some take an additional 8 to 10 years, and you come back and you have to fight just to make $1. That should not happen, and we're losing physicians. They're going to other countries. They're being recruited every day. Right? So we have to place value into our people. We're encouraging all Bahamians to become educated. We're encouraging our younger children to go to college and to come back and be good citizens of the country. But we now have to find ways how to ensure that we keep the professionals, because other than that, our brightest and best will be providing services outside of our country, and that's not something that we should encourage.
That's right. We do have to reverse the brain drain
Absolutely.
situation we have in this country. Right.
And Mr. Ferguson, if I can ask you, as president of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress, the memorandum of understanding is the second one to be signed with the Progressive Liberal Party.
Yeah.
The first one being signed in 1964. Why did it take almost 6 decades for the labor movement and a political party to be even keeled on the same page as to what the workers of the country desire to see achieved for them?
Very good question. But if you look at that document, you would see that, for example, the housing project that came into being, it was moved as a result of the labor movement and the Progressive Liberal Party.
Mm-hmm.
So there was common grounds there. If you look at what we now know as agency shop, that came out of the Trade Union Congress along with the Progressive Liberal Party. If you look at what you refer to as the national insurance issue, and that again came as a result of the Progressive Liberal Party. Scholarships made available to Bahamian parents who could not afford, that again came as a result. So the PLP and the labor movement is inextricably connected, going all the way back. Now, what we did, and this is a new group of highly educated people, and I said it publicly and I'll say it on this program, I think I am a very privileged man to be put in the position to represent the caliber of people. You're talking about all the doctors, all the nurses, all of air traffic controllers, all the BPL, and national insurance. Look, I am privileged. So you see a cadre of Bahamians who are committed, upfront, straight up. So the PLP did what they had to do in '64, you're right. I happen to have a copy of the document. And I looked at, what they call this organization now, the credit union. That came as a result of the PLP and the labor movement under the Trade Union Congress. Who signed the document? The former Sir Lyndon Pinland. He signed it as leader and Prime Minister of Bahamas, and Secretary for Adiana. They signed that. So what we're living now, to a great extent, Mr. Jones, is coming from that arrangement. What are we now doing? We're cleaning up things. For an example, the House of Labor. The government agreed in the memorandum, August 25th, that they're going to work with the TUC to renovate that building and have that building hopefully ready for the 50th anniversary. We will have the statue there surrounded, and we can fix that building up because that's in the inner city. That's where the whole thing is. We got to give pride and dignity to work, and we got to respect the people who played a very important role in bringing this country together. So no, a colleague of mine was on the program today, and he said, why was it that the labor movement and the PLP worked together? Because, like I said, if you look at the history, I just name off some names, I didn't name all of them, but almost 90% of the first cabinet of Bahamas were all trade union leaders. So you had no problem. They know about struggle. They know about agency shop. They know about wrongful termination. They know about housing projects. Most of the whole housing projects came as a result of that. People like David Knowles, Dr. Thomas Bastian, and people like Bobby Clinton and those, they were the people who played a major role. So now you see, to some extent, the industrial situation has subsided because, as Doc indicated, it's not quite there. We have some specific issues pertaining to our union. But overall, there's been some progression towards, I respect you, you respect me, let's meet and let's reach some compromise in the interest of workers. So that's one of the reasons why people say it's politics. It's not politics. If you're taking care of me, why would I complain? I mean, if I can access you and we could talk, even if we don't agree on everything, but if you respect me sufficiently enough to talk to me, why should I carry on? And that's where I think it's important that the public, and most members of the public agree that that is the situation.
But in the case of one of the other umbrella unions in the country, the NCTUB, there would have been criticisms of the new umbrella union formed out of the NCTUB that the MOU was signed by the president at the time, Bernard Evans, and he did not have the full consensus of the different affiliates within his umbrella union, and that is why the criticism would have been that it was political. Do you believe that when you signed the Memorandum of Understanding, you had the full consensus of the affiliates within your umbrella union?
Yes, 101%. As a matter of fact, when they all of the unions in the Bahamas, all participated in the discussion that led up to the workers' agenda, which ended up being the Memorandum of Understanding. We had one document. We prepared that document. We made that document available to all political parties. We went to the DNA, they agreed with it, they didn't put it in writing. We went to Mr. Bain, he agreed, we had a meeting with him. He made his announcement that he support everything. The Free National Movement, they chose not to be a part of it. So it was not that we constructed a document for the PLP to the exclusion of anybody else. And all of those unions participated in the discussion. Now, for whatever reason, their president came forward and their president said, hey, he's in agreement. So I can't second guess him, nor could I go behind him. I must take him on face value. If he says that his body is in agreement, so we sat there and we signed off. They seem to have had an issue, that's an internal issue between them, which I don't particularly care to be a part of because I don't know the whole story. Other than the fact that, it was an agreement made, they participated in those discussions. The president said, yes, we'll sign. We set a date, and we went and we executed the document.
And I believe, to reiterate, to piggyback off of another question Brian would have asked you, are you satisfied with progress that has been made on fulfilling those obligations in that memorandum?
I am satisfied that there is an effort made for us to begin that process. There are one or two things that is very important that we achieve, as Dr. Butler just indicated, and Pender Butler, with the Registrar of Trade Unions. Very important job. Matter of fact, it's the most important job in the ministry. It's a statutory function that person operates independent of the minister. Not the Director of Labor. The Director of Labor is governed by the minister. The Registrar of Trade Union is the person in the ministry with statutory powers who can bring an action and he can defend an action. So to us, that was the problem for the movement. We were able to convince the government to do that. The BPL agreement, as you call, they refused to register that agreement, but the government made sure that happened. The lady in Grand Bahama, as I indicated earlier, they refused to register her as a union. The government came along on the 1st of April, and the government said they believe in freedom of association, which is true. Every Bahamian, Section 24.1 of the Constitution, give you the right and give me the right to be Catholic, Anglican, Baptist, whatever. FNM, PLP, whoever else. So there's no issue. But if people fail to do what you're supposed to do because somebody's going to say over there, oh man, he's only doing it because he's PLP. Well, what they got to do with anything? We are Bahamians. You have a right to be whatever you want to be. And if you help me, member Bala, trust me, I will go with you. If this fella ain't doing nothing for me, later for him. I think most human beings operate that way. The President of the United States said people vote their interests. That's what he said, and I believe him.
And if I could pose this question to both of you, the Prime Minister has announced now, but we already know that they have announced they're working towards a livable wage with a view to increasing the minimum wage. And in the recent budget, the Prime Minister has committed to starting within the government in terms of raising minimum wage within the government. And that burden would fall on the taxpayers, given the fact that we're in this inflationary period. We're seeing higher prices than we've seen in about 30 years. Do you think the taxpayer can shoulder the burden of paying higher wages to government employees?
Yeah, why not? I mean, everything is based on productivity. That's a part of business. If you have a productive worker, right, the 3% or 4% that you're giving, I guarantee you, if you look at that worker performance, that worker performance far exceeds 3%. So what we have to do is be concerned with, as Dr. Pinder Butler said, we have to educate our people, give them the best education, and they will perform. As a matter of fact,
Those efforts have to be correlated somehow to us raising, because if we just raise the minimum wage and don't focus on increasing productivity, then we're just kicking the can down the road in terms of addressing the issue.
but let me say this to you. I am negotiating an industrial agreement, and I propose in the collective agreement a productivity clause. I could not convince the employer to put it in. But still the employer would come to the public and say, these works are not performing. I said, look, productivity is critical to the success of your organization. But they said, we don't want to, that's something new. They don't want it. So I ended up signing an agreement devoid of productivity clause. So I'm with you. Everything must be related. The union must play a very, Dr. Pinder Butler, I guarantee you, she can give you a million reasons as to how to improve the efficiency and the productivity of the hospital. But if you don't consult her, that's what she does, that's her profession. If you don't consult her, then the productivity ain't there, the morale ain't there. Well, then you're gonna blame her, but you fail to listen to what she has to say to help that situation. She represented all of these consultants. If you get sick tomorrow, or I get sick, and they need any surgery, you know where you go to? You gotta go there. So my point is, why don't you listen to her? Because I don't know. I'm a lawyer. That I know. I ain't no doctor. So I ain't gonna listen to her. That's the point I'm making. Let the minister and whoever else consult her. That's what it's all about.
But then, Mr. Ferguson, there's an issue in our country, and Dr. Pinder Butler could probably speak to that, with there being elected officials not giving much respect or much regard to industrial agreements when they are signed.
Right. So, I mean, we have had this challenge, and perhaps, even though we would hope that that would be resolved, we know that sometimes, persons aren't always able to reason and to logic things that would benefit not just the employer, but the employee. So they're not thinking past the moment. And so I think it's important as we talk about things that help us as a group engage the respective persons so they understand the end goal, right? When we talk about productivity clauses and expectations, oftentimes when you look at asking people to do more, who may already be doing more, right? So they may already be going above and beyond, but still not being compensated for doing that extra mile even now, right? When they do continue to be more productive, then what will be the next step from the employer as it relates to career development, planning, and the like? Are you going to be compensated for when you work after hours? These are some of the challenges we're having now. We work after hours and we're not compensated, right? Unimaginable. You work on holidays and you're not compensated. Where does that happen, right? So when you talk about, okay, let's increase your salary, or even put it to what should really be the standard, because remember now, we're not going above and beyond yet. We're just trying to get you to standard. So let's take you to standard, but I still want you to now do extra, right? And I have no plan for what that will look like in the future. What bonuses might you have? Would that allow you to have extra days off if I can't compensate you? That sort of thing. So just, we're just asking for even that discourse to happen. Let's sit at the table. Let's talk like educated people. We want the country to be better. We're talking education even of our people. We want our people to know what to expect when they come to our healthcare institutions and demand to know these things too. But all of us have to be moving in the same direction. Otherwise, you increase the wage and there's still no end goal. So I think all of those things are important.
Absolutely. And so we thank you so much for joining us on this first segment of Jones & Company. It was a very interesting discussion. So Mr. Obi Ferguson, Junior QC, president of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Trade Union Congress. really thank you for joining us. And also Dr.
Binder Butler.
Binder Butler, exactly. CPSU, right? Yes, we thank you also for joining us and sharing all
Thank
your,
you for having us.
updates.
Thank you.
And so on the next segments, we'll have a couple other union leaders to carry on the discussion. All right, so
Okay.
we'll be back after this break. Thank you.